All right, so here's some more on the Fireside Poets. I mentioned them before. I just wanted to go through some again here because these are definitely lined up with a lot of the romantic ideas, and there actually is some more other developments that they have in their own. It's really hard to put everybody into one category, so like I said, I'm bringing them about one more time, a couple of these people. So these are one of the Fireside Poets. We saw one of his poems before. Just after I pointed some of the other ones out, I give some excerpts of some of the ones I hadn't mentioned explicitly, and he's one of them. In addition to fireside poetry, he wrote poems against slavery. Here's a picture of him, very dressed up fellow there. So he was criticized for some of his instructive and sermon-like style. Some people thought he had like a didactic tone. He was trying to teach people what they should think, what they should do. If you think about the idea of the Enlightenment, it's the idea of instruction and indoctrination and following other people. But romantic thinkers, especially connected to transcendentalism, when you think about this connection, they want to have the inner voice, not someone else telling me what to do, but I want to, by my moral intuition, I want to move forward and connect with other, and just all of this outside instructive voice that before was definitely deemed appropriate, now is just kind of dissonance that we're trying to separate ourselves from. So some criticism in that front, but take a look at that in a minute. Categorically under Romanticism for the characters he shared with the movement in general. A lot of the themes with the Fireside Poets, with Romanticism in general, nature, the individual, reform, nostalgia. And let's take a look here. So this idea of instruction, this criticism, probably connected to the fact that he was a Quaker, and many of his poems have a religious focus. So like we've seen, people are trying to move away from that. People are trying to move more into a spirituality rather than a religious idea, perhaps. But it's interesting because some 100 poems of his are now sung in many churches. So if you maybe go to a Protestant church service, you may find one of his poems in the hymnal there in the pew in front of you. An example of abolitionist poetry can be seen in Song of the Negro Boatman, written by him to imitate diatopic phonetics of the period. We've seen this before. It's the idea of you're writing so you can imitate the way people speak. This is common at this time, trying to get the letter, the written word as close as you can to the spoken word, to imitate the way people are, the way their genuine state of being, and not. And so it's very here's an example of that, and I'll just read a little bit of what we have here. Oh, never you fear, never you hear. De driver blow his horn. We pray, the Lord, He give us signs that some clay we be free. The north wind tell it to de pines, etc., etc. You could see here how this connection is, to the way dialect spoken there. Here's an excerpt from a famous poem of his entitled Snowbound. So check it out. Unwarmed by any sunset light, the gray day darkened into night, a night made hoary with the swarm, a whirl dance of the blinding storm, as zigzag wavering to and fro, crossed and recrossed the winged snow. And ere the early bedtime came, the white drift piled the window frame. So you can see here, we've got light night, swarm, storm, furrow, snow came, frame, A, B, B, C, C, D, D. Construction here, very vocal, very musical. The idea here is snowbound, okay? Fireside Poets, they are snowbound. So this is a poem you can read when you're by the fire and outside it's snowing with the white drift piled in the window frame here to show that, this idea of cuddling together under the blankets, maybe sitting by the fire, sharing the poetry. Here's another poem, Eternal Goodness. Who fathoms the eternal thought? Who talks of scheme and plan? The Lord is God, He needeth not the poor device of man. I walk with bare, hushed feet the ground, ye tread with boldness shod. I dare not fix with met and bound the prayer and power of God. Definitely reminiscent of a previous era. Like I said, all of these are not completely analogous with the abandonment of the ideas of God, because, the idea of Quakerism, we've seen in a couple of other writers, is developed with a lot of the progressive ideas of the self. And here we have Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He's the most well-known of the fireside poets. He translated the first American version of Dante's The Divine Comedy. Scholar, he was at, I believe, a couple of universities. Harvard was one of them. Here's a picture of him. So, amongst his most famous works are the Song of Hiawatha, which is an epic poem about the Ojibwe Indians and their adaptation to the dominant colonial presence. We also have Paul Revere's Ride, which is interesting, in 1860. It's a somewhat historically inaccurate recounting of Paul Revere's famous ride. And Evangeline, which is a story in verse about an Acadian youth named Evangeline who searches for her lost love during the expulsions of the Acadians. I'd like to just kind of remind you once again that instead of giving you an extended summary of all of these, I suggest you go and look them up online just to take a look at some of the styles. A lot of these themes we've seen, a lot of the themes, the styles, the versification might be similar, but once again, it is a course on content, so you will need to know about the different things that are written and how, not just how written, but you have to remember the names and the authors that wrote all these. So please keep that in mind as we move on.